All right, well, welcome everybody. Let's be real. Facts tell, but stories sell. Have you ever listened to a speaker and felt an instant connection emotionally, all because of one short story? And maybe you don't even know why you felt this connection. It was probably because of a short story they just told. That's the power that we're tapping into today in the Speakeasy Cafe. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about how to use personal stories to inspire, connect, and move your audience into action. Even if you don't think you have a story worth telling, and I often hear people say, I don't have a story. You have so many stories, and we're going to specifically focus on personal stories in your everyday life that you can start to weave in to your videos, to your workshops, to your talks, whatever it is that you're doing and however you are connecting with your audience. So stick around because by the end of this little episode, you will walk away with a simple way to start building your own story vault, which will be filled with everyday moments that you can use in any talk, any workshop, or any video. I'm Janelle Anderson, your virtual events visionary and business mentor for coaches. I help coaches attract more clients and grow their business through powerful speaking and hosting profitable virtual events. Stories are a very big, important part of that, of what I teach. And like I said at the beginning, stories sell because they bypass the head and they speak straight to the heart. That's why people will remember you and your stories long after they've forgotten whatever your content was. Whatever your teaching points are, they won't remember them, but they will remember the stories. So when you tell the right story at the right time, there's three things that happen. You build trust and connection. It's one of the most powerful things about stories. People love stories, and when they hear a story, they feel connected. And they feel like, wow, that person knows what I'm going through because they're hearing your story. Also, stories can make your message stick. They make your messages sticky because the story illustrates whatever your message is, and people will remember it and be able to integrate it into their own lives, right? And the third thing is that stories will inspire people to take action and to take action with you by signing up for your program or booking that discovery call or joining your group or whatever it is that you want them to do. They're going to be more inspired to take that action when you tell, especially personal stories from your own life. So let me share an example with you from my own life, just to show you how it can be just an everyday moment. This morning, my niece asked me if I could watch her little girl for an hour while she got ready for her day. I said yes without hesitation because I can. I love spending time with her kids. She's got two littles, and I love little kids. And I only have one granddaughter, and she lives across the country, and I hardly ever see her. So it's such a blessing to be a part of my great niece and my great nephew's lives. And after a full hour of snuggling and playing with that sweet little girl, I was reminded again of why I do what I do. Running your own business comes with its fair share of challenges, right? Ups, downs, tech hiccups, mindset struggles, you name it. We're all on this roller coaster ride called entrepreneurship. But it also gives you something incredibly valuable, and that's freedom. If I worked a 9 to 5 job, I wouldn't have been able to say yes this morning, and I wouldn't have been able to show up for my family in that moment. So, on those days when things feel chaotic or overwhelming or frustrating, I remind myself, hey, I chose this. And I'm so blessed that I did because I have the freedom to say yes to the people and the moments that matter the most. So, before we keep going, I want to invite you to my 4-part masterclass series that's happening right now. It's called Stories That Move Hearts. The 3 core stories every workshop needs. We've already kicked it off, but it's not too late to jump in. We've got 3 powerful sessions left, and they will help you craft the stories that will connect deeply with your audience and lead them right to your offer. And you'll get all the recordings. So even though you've missed the first session, it's okay. It's recorded and you're going to have access to all of those. Plus, there's a workbook. Now you can still grab your spot, and I will put the link in our chat here in Zoom, and it'll also be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. And the reason why I offer that is because people often tell me they don't have stories to tell. But here's the truth. You don't need a dramatic life story to be a great storyteller. Often people hear my story. I have a very dramatic story. I don't tell it all the time. It's a big story. It's a big story. We all have these big stories of big things that happened, maybe, but we think, well, that's too much, or it's too long, or I can't tell that here. And some people will say, I don't have a dramatic life story. Nothing ever big happened in my life, but you don't need that. You just need to pay attention to your own everyday life. Here are 3 different places that you can look for stories in your everyday life. First of all, think about the daily life. I just shared with you a daily life type of story. This morning, I got to go babysit my little great niece. But think of funny moments or conversations that you've had, maybe with your spouse or your kids or your neighbor. Or maybe it's a small frustration or a small win. In your everyday routines of life, there can be stories. Just think about what's happened in the last couple days, right? In the last week or so, and just start writing those down. You'll be surprised how you can take every day, every moment's stories and just turn them into a message or weave them into your message. Another place to look for stories is your past. So maybe there was a job that you quit suddenly, or you got promoted, or maybe you lost a job. Perhaps there was a relationship that went sour or became the love of your life. Maybe there are some turning points in your life where you made a big decision. You moved across country, or you ended a relationship, or maybe there's a big loss in your life, right? So many things in our lives can become our great stories. And then another place to look for stories is behind the scenes of your business. People love to hear what's going on in your business. And I often share, some of the frustrations that happened, or some of the mistakes I've made, or the times that I've failed even, or my wins, or my big aha moments, or a big turning point in my business, or how do I put together workshops, behind the scenes? What are the things I do? What's my tech setup? What's my thought process? Things like that. People love that. So those are 3 areas to look for stories in that will be your personal daily types of stories that can really illustrate your message. Here's a couple of examples. It's a burned dinner. Let's say you burned your dinner, but it becomes a story about failing forward. Or a chat with your dog walker becomes a story about boundaries. Or maybe your first workshop becomes a story about courage and imperfect action. So here's the tip for today is to start your story vault. To get a notebook or just open up a Google Doc and drop in story ideas as they happen. Just be in the habit of writing down the little moments of your life. Think about the last few days. For example, besides me going and babysitting my great niece this morning, our dog over the weekend tore off a nail, his little nail, and I had to take him to the vet, and it was a big thing, right? They had to sedate him and cut it. Apparently, they cut it all the way down because you can't just leave the little quick open. And he had a bandage on his leg, and he didn't like that very much. I could talk about that. I could figure out, well, how could I connect that to a message in my business? Another thing that happened to me in the last few days, I took some time to just lay outside on my hammock and watch the clouds like I did when I was a child. Little things like that. It seems like, how could you make a story about something like that? Well, you can. So think about in the last few days, what's happened in your life, and get in the habit of start writing down these everyday moments. And also think about your past and start writing down those moments. Think about behind the scenes of your business. Keep a notebook and write them down. A good story on its own is nice, but also we want to weave in a message. I've been talking about messages. A good story with a point or a message is powerful. In fact, I always say never tell a story without a message, because then it's just a story and it doesn't really connect to people. But when it's connected to a message, a point, a lesson, an insight, in some way connecting to what it is you're teaching, what it is you train on, what your expertise is, and in a way that makes your audience go, oh, yeah, I can relate to that. I can apply that to my life. So here's how you can make that connection. Because you might be wondering, like, well, I can think of some things that happened in my life in the last few days, but I have no idea how I could connect that to any kind of message. So start with what's the message you want to share, or what's the feeling you want to create in your next talk or video, whatever you're doing. The feeling I wanted to create with my little story today was that feeling of gratitude for what I'm doing and the blessings that come along with being an entrepreneur. So think about the feeling or think about the message that you're wanting to relate to your people, and then go find that story that could illustrate it. And so if you have a story vault, you can have this list of stories and go find, okay, which story could relate to this message I want to share? Or which one of these stories could bring out that emotion and that feeling that I'm going for? Now, here's a tip. The story doesn't have to be about the thing you're talking about. The story I told today wasn't a story about running a business. It was a story about being able to go take care of my great niece and hang out with her. But I related it to business by thinking, well, how could I, what's the message I could create from this story that would relate to being an entrepreneur, running a business? And I thought, well, if I wasn't running a business, I wouldn't be able to go do that. So, I wove that message in. So first think about the feeling and think about what story could illustrate that feeling, or think about the message you're sharing and go find a story that could bring that to life. And again, it doesn't have to be a story that is directly related. Like sometimes I'll talk about my message is about there's abundance, and, I used to have a scarcity mindset and there's a lot of abundance in the world. And I might share the story of my peach tree that the first year didn't bring forth any peaches, but by the third year we had so many peaches we couldn't keep up. That's a picture of abundance in the universe. Now, a peach tree with peaches isn't necessarily a direct message of abundance, but you can tie it in. Sometimes I share a story about learning to play piano to illustrate how you need a mentor to help you in your business. Me learning to play piano has nothing to do with running a business, but I needed a mentor to teach me how to play piano because I didn't know what I didn't know. And you need a mentor to run a business because you don't know what you don't know. So look for those stories and then use a bridge. When you're sharing your story, you want to use a bridge into the message so that it's a smooth connection. You can use short phrases like, this reminded me of, like I did today. After I spent that hour with my great niece, it made me realize that. I realized in that moment. That's another phrase you can use. Or, just like I ignored the burning dinner, many coaches ignore visibility until it's too late. So if you're going to tie like a burning dinner to ignoring visibility in a business, you could use it in a sentence like that. Just like this, and then your audience, many coaches, many business owners, many women, whoever your audience is, also do this. That's another way to tie it in. So you do need that bridge so that people know now you're switching from the story into this message that relates to them. So your action step today is to start your story vault. You can start with just 3 to 5 simple everyday moments from this past week and jot them down. And ask yourself, what did I learn? What realization came to me? What insight was there? How would I connect it to my message? You'll be surprised at how many ways you can do that. And again, if you want help turning those moments into powerful, client-attracting stories, come join me inside of the masterclass, Stories That Move Hearts. We're diving into the 3 types of stories every coach needs, whether it's for a workshop or a talk or a video or even one-on-one discovery calls. These stories can be used everywhere. And I would love to help you uncover and refine your stories. So look for the link below in the description underneath this video. And for those of you in Zoom, I will put it here in the chat. Now I can open things up if anybody here in the room with me has a question or a comment about stories, about finding everyday stories. And let me see here. I need to allow you to unmute and I can't find it. Excuse me for coughing, still getting over a cold. The cough is the last thing to leave. Awesome. So while I'm getting that link, does anybody have any comments, questions, anything you'd like to share? You can unmute yourself and jump right in. Oh,
Oh, you lost one. I was gonna say, I just got off a call with somebody and he's working on this talk and it's just story after story after story. And it's like, dude, is there a point to any of these? Or he just wants to open up the notebook and just shotgun it out. He's got a lot to say, very interesting stuff, but if you're just trying to show people how interesting you are, they're gonna say, wow, good job. Loved it. See you later.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens, right? It becomes all about you, and people aren't able to connect that to their own lives. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's a great story. Maybe it was entertaining and enjoyable, but it doesn't make that connection. And that's what you're really after when you're telling your story. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a really great point. Exactly. And Mike here has storytelling. What do you do every month? Do you want to share that with people?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll put the link if you like. It's the
Yeah.
Essentials of Story. Yeah, it's storytelling for solopreneurs. And
Nice.
that is a workshop we do. And what we do is each month we look at something different. Sometimes it's the origin story of how you got into the business you're in. But a lot of people confuse the origin story of how they got into their business as just an origin story about themselves. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, this particular, well, it's actually this week, but this month's workshop is about misconceptions that people have. Because how many times do you hear a workshop, a speaker begin with, forget everything you know about this subject, or
Yeah.
everything you've been taught is wrong. I say, well, gee, thanks. I've only lived 50 years on this earth. I'm glad to know that everything I've been taught is wrong, and you have
Yeah.
all the answers in the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a more tactful way and a more appropriate way, because it's possible something you've been taught is wrong. So there's how to deal with your audience's misconceptions without giving them the finger in the process.
I love it. Well, thanks for
And that
that.
is coming. Yeah, I'll put the link here.
Yeah.
You're all
Yeah.
Deborah and Mr. Invisible, and
Yeah.
we got another
Yep.
joining as well.
I
And
think I'm gonna have to join one of these days, Mike.
it'd be great to see
A lot of
you.
fun. Yeah. Awesome. Storytelling
So,
is powerful. Go ahead, Timothy.
hi. I thought was really good was the idea of a story vault because for me, I have all kinds of ideas, all kinds of stories, things happening all day long, and I never thought to actually stop and create a list of those ideas, even though I'm not ready to execute or do anything right now. But the story was really good and I could feel it in the moment,
Yep.
but then I go and forget about it. So
Yep.
just being intentional about creating this story vault that really kind of clicked and said, you know what? Let me create this vault. And when I get ready, I got
Yep.
all these ideas that
Yep.
I have there just waiting for me.
Yeah.
So
It's really valuable. And another thing that it does, it's just like you've probably heard before that when you look for gratitude, you do a gratitude journal every day, your mind starts looking for those things to be grateful for. Well, when you start thinking about stories and you start noticing, and writing down everyday moments that just seem ordinary, but you write them down, then your mind will start looking for more stories and you'll actually be able to think of them in the moment, even if you haven't written it down because you're so used to finding the stories in your life. But start by that vault, and then it's like a gold mine, really. You
Yeah,
can,
it's like increased awareness of what you already have. Like you start
yes.
seeing that new Mercedes that you want or
Mhm.
you just bought, and now it's everywhere. It's increased awareness.
It is.
So that
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's really great. And
Thanks.
the other thing I always say too is pay attention when you're listening to somebody tell a story, or maybe you're watching a video and people tell stories. Pay attention to the story they're telling, how they're telling it. Why is it drawing you in? Why is it capturing your attention? If it is, listen and look for the messages that they have in there. Like if you're watching, I like to go watch really good TEDx talks or a Toastmaster contest, the really uh, the winners of these contests because they're really good speakers. And just pay attention to the story part of it. You'll learn a lot. Watch how they weave in the message. Watch how it connects with you. And like Mike was bringing up, pay attention to the ones that don't have a message. And then how do you feel when you listen to somebody's story that really isn't connecting to you in any way? It's usually probably like, oh, yeah, good story, but okay. That's all about you. So you want to remember when you're telling a story, it's not really about you ever. It's about them. It's always about them. So how can you make it about them, but still share the story? And there's also a lot like Mike was talking about elements of stories, and he was sharing that with me earlier. Like there's elements and there's structure and there's ways to tell the story that draw people in, that connect them right away instead of disconnecting them, like Mike's example there of, everything you've ever learned about this isn't true. Like there are ways, there are techniques, there are elements, there are speaking techniques as well that really can enhance your storytelling. And so we're working on all of those in my masterclass series, which my masterclass series is a part of my bigger course where we build a workshop with you and all the elements of a workshop, the content, where the stories fit in, how do you get people there, how do you make your offer, all the elements and pieces of a workshop that can make you money is in that course. And this storytelling part, I decided to make it separate because we didn't have time in the 6 weeks to really dive into stories, and stories are so important. So I decided to make it a separate masterclass and offer it separately. It's also a bonus in the course if you're looking for help with workshops. That'll be coming up in June. But anyway, any other questions about your personal stories? Have you thought of any personal stories you could tell from today's Speakeasy Cafe? Any ideas popping up? Deborah?
Yeah. So I came home every morning. I go, not every morning, but I go for a Pilates class. And I come home today, my husband's washing my car.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is so different. He's never done this. I've always just taken it to the car wash. And at that moment, I was going to say something, but I was drawn back to instead to speak words of gratitude and thankfulness. And I said, how did I say it to him? I says, it takes a loving husband to wash his wife's car,
Oh,
and so I spoke that over him, and I felt there's such power in our words,
yes.
right? So if we can collect these stories, like me coming home not expecting him to be washing my car, or I went in the house, I had already been home because I used that car, and I noticed how dirty it was. It was just full of pollen, and
Mm.
I like when my car is clean. And I didn't even have to let him know this, but he wind up just taking everything out, started cleaning my car. And I felt a little guilty that I wasn't helping him. But then I realized it was a loving act that he was doing. So I think what I need to do is then connect that to the power of our words, I think. Is that kind of
Mhm.
what you're saying too? Is to help people, like say I would use that for if I can ask your advice and or this is what I got from it. Like how does that help someone else's to have a better story, right? Because that's what we do when we share. We help them to
Mhm.
have a better story.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
I'm a doer. I like to do things. but to let other people do things for me is a little hard. But I just loved it. I just loved to see him cleaning it. And truthfully, he was cleaning it like I would have cleaned it, which is just even better, not like when they empty out the dishwasher and you wind up putting things away where they're not, right.
Yeah.
And so it was nice. It was a
That's
very
beautiful.
nice thing.
That'd be a
Yeah.
great story. You could have, there's a lot of different messages you could bring out with that kind of story. But I love the idea of it being the message of the power of your words
Yeah.
and how that maybe affected him in that moment when you spoke that over him. What was his reaction? How did it make him feel? You could tie that story into, having a grateful heart, or maybe I don't know what your topic is that you usually talk about, but let's say you're
Marriages.
marriages. I was going to say, so let's say you're a relationship coach. Perfect.
I am. I'm a Christian therapist, Christian counseling and coaching. Yeah, for marriages. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect story. Yeah, put that in your vault for sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, love it. Hi, Rennie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for being here. That's all the time we have today. We have been talking about this month, in the month of May. The theme has been speaking to connect. And so today it was about personal stories. I think we have at least one more Monday in May. So it'll be another topic along the same line. And again, if you want to see any of the past Speakeasy Cafes are on my YouTube channel, and the older ones are on my app, in my app website. And for those of you that maybe weren't here when I dropped it, let me put it in here again. Emerging Life Coach is the website. And you create a free account there, and then you can go check out. There's other things on there besides the Speakeasy Cafes. Or go to YouTube for the more recent ones. I hope I'll see you guys back next Monday. Have a really great week and start your story vaults.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.